This is the new Aqara M3 Hub, and I'm losing my mind over it, but it's not for the reason you think. The features packed into it are incredible, and the eventual outcome of this hub is that it will be everything you guys are after, but I don't think it's quite ready. At least not when it comes to most of the new and the most exciting features. That's why I'm losing my mind. The genius is here in so many ways, but today you're gonna get brutal honesty. I'm gonna show you what's working and what's not. Let's start with my Philips Hue lights. Now, these are being controlled through the Aqara app using what's called Matter. This took me all of about 10 seconds to get set up and working, and you can see it's working very well. This is the first time you've been able to bring any third-party device into Aqara's app. Amazing, right? Now, better yet, here's my Philips Hue indoor motion sensor. It's starting an automation in Aqara's app. Aqara has an amazing automation engine, especially when compared to Philips Hue. So there's so much benefit here, and it's running lightning fast. But this whole situation turns on its head in about 3 seconds. And the first part is just a bug, but man, I didn't tell you this when we ran this automation the first time, but these two Philips Hue lights are supposed to come on with that same automation. So all 3 lights here should come on when I wave my hand in front of this sensor. But in devastating new release fashion, no Philips Hue lights will turn on for me in any automation. The sensors, they work as they should, but not the lights. It's frustrating. Now, I said this was using Matter, and the second problem with that is that today there are only 3 products that can be brought into Aqara's app using Matter, so the usefulness of this is negligible for most of you. Worse yet, and I cannot understate how big of an issue this is for the smart home industry, but that Matter logo on your product is supposed to mean that it will work in any Matter ready application or with any Matter controller. But what Aqara just did is make that logo useless. I don't even blame them for doing this because it's the right response to a standard that isn't working. They made this experience as good as they can. But now they're gonna have to add products in little groups or even individually like they have for the launch. Now, I know I'm getting off track here, but the Connectivity Standards Alliance, the keepers of the so-called Matter standard, better get this figured out fast because this breaks the meaning of the logo entirely. Now stay tuned as I show you the good, the great, and a few things that might cause you to hold off on the M3 for a couple of months. Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and my goal on the channel is to save you time and money on your journey to live smarter, and that's my ultimate job. And Aqara fully sponsored this video, and yeah, that's how I started it. Now, I might take it on the chin here for some of the things I'm saying, but I'm hoping that they appreciate the honesty and that we do an update video together in the near future. Because the truth is, they as a company have been amazing at saving you time and money because they're inexpensive and provide a lot. And I want to continue through this by talking about the hardware on the M3. It's really impressive. And the other thing you have to understand is that although some of the new features are not working perfectly, there's a bunch that are, and you will still have access to everything that was available in the Aqara app before this hub came out. It can do everything all the other hubs can do from Aqara, so you're actually starting in a really good place, and we're just adding new features with the M3. The Aqara M3 Hub features 3 smart home radios: Thread, Bluetooth, and Zigbee. It also features a Wi-Fi radio for connecting to your home's network, an Ethernet port if you'd rather have good network reliability, and a USB-C power port. The hidden feature that a lot of you are going to be excited about is that the Ethernet port is Power over Ethernet ready. That means you could use a single Ethernet cable to power this and provide that Ethernet connection using a power over Ethernet switch. The M3 also has 8 gigabytes of onboard storage, which works really well with a 95 decibel speaker, as well as an option to upload custom ringtones. This is a feature we've seen on the chimes for video doorbells from Aqara, and it means you can play all kinds of custom sounds through this speaker whenever you'd like. As in, you can welcome yourself home with a custom sound.
Welcome home, Brian. You're looking fantastic today.
The 8 gigabytes of onboard storage isn't just for custom ringtones though, it's actually to store your automations, your scenes, and other things you create in Aqara's app. That moves almost all of your automations to local. So understand, that means this is a potentially wired smart home hub that runs almost everything inside of the network in your home, and it doesn't care if the internet is available. That's everything every one of you want from Aqara and most smart home makers. Now the hub also features a 360-degree IR blaster, and Aqara has a large library of IR devices in their app. So you just pick your TV, your air conditioner, or other electronic from a big list, and this hub should know how to control it, thereby turning dumb electronics into smart ones. Now, if it's not in the library of IR devices, Aqara's hub also allows you to teach it most remotes. That feature worked with 4 out of 5 remotes that I tried. And for me, the IR blaster worked pretty much anywhere I placed this hub, and the furthest distance I tested it was at about 20 feet. It's been excellent and very reliable. And when you open up the box, you're going to instantly notice the square shape of the hub and the fact that this is a little bulkier than some of the previous hubs from Aqara. It can also mount on the wall, and you get a wall mount that's included and is actually very nice. Plus, that's going to help with power over Ethernet installations, as well as potentially help that IR blaster in your home. That's a breakdown of the hardware on the M3, and those are as good of specifications as most smart home hubs have to date. But let's get on to how Aqara is using the M3 to create an unbelievable standard of reliability with something called ARC Technology 2.0. Well, does it all work? Well, hang on. Now, I'm going to use a video from Aqara that explains how it is supposed to benefit you and how it's supposed to work, and then I'll tell you how it works for me. Number one, since it has all of that onboard storage, your automations are able to run locally and therefore without the internet available. I unplugged my Nest Wi-Fi Pro from the internet and my automations continue to run perfectly. There are a few functions inside of the app that would require the cloud, and those are things like checking what the weather is and then running an automation based off of that. Number two, the same thing is true if your Wi-Fi router goes completely offline. The hub will continue to operate its automations, and again, this worked great. So far, so good, right? Just wait. If you have 2 M3 hubs, so you go out there, you buy 2 of these today, they will continue to communicate through Thread during all network failures. In fact, this enables a full failover feature where if one of your 2 M3 hub fails, the other will take over. Unfortunately, I didn't have 2 of these to test it, so I can't report how that works. But the most impressive feature is that if all of the M3 hubs in your home fail, then you should still be able to have some simple automations run. This is what's called devices binding and through what's called a proxy device. However, despite having the 2 devices that should be able to execute this, I can't get it to work. In fact, you're gonna see this happen right now. Now, I've unplugged my M3 hub, and what's supposed to happen, an automation I've set up in that hub, is that when I turn this T2 relay on, it's supposed to turn on and off the T1 light strip. So you can see it's not happening, and that's what this feature is supposed to do. This is a great feature, but it is so limited in the types of automations that are supposed to work with this and the products that can use this feature. If it expands more in the future, then it will be very useful, but today it's just disappointing. Now, for those of you with other Aqara hubs in your home already. Adding an M3 hub actually does this incredible thing. It'll pull the automations from the other hubs into it. It'll store them on the M3, and that makes those other hubs and their automations local. This is very impressive, and it did work in a lot of cases. But when you look at the M3 hub settings, you'll see this cluster option. That's it supposedly taking over and pulling in some of those automations, creating this network of hubs in your home. Within that feature, there's this self-healing option. Basically, as hubs fail, other ones should take over, and then simple automations should be able to still run. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get any automation to run in that scenario, and I've tried to go as simple as I could to make sure. Everything just goes offline today, and the automation doesn't work. Speaking of the automation working when things are offline, one of the really impressive features in the video from Aqara is that the Aqara app should continue to allow you to control things that are attached to the M3 hub when the internet is offline. And that is not working for me at all. I just went through, let me do the math here, 7 reliability related features. And of those 7, 3 are working, 1 I couldn't test, and 3 failed. Now I'm absolutely excited about all of these features coming and working. But this is where I'm concerned about you guys going and buying this today and finding out that half of the big features that were talked about at CES and by many other content creators that you're seeing today and Aqara themselves just aren't quite working or aren't up to the standard you would hope for. And listen, this will be a really fluid situation, and things could even be fixed by the time I launch this video, and likely by the time most of you are watching this. So feel free to ask in the comments. I'll tell you what I found as of now. Now, one of the most amazing features that this hub has, and it worked flawlessly for me, is the migration feature. Many of your older Aqara hubs can have all of their devices and automations ported directly onto the M3 when you get it. So you don't have to rely on those older hubs. And what was really amazing about this process was that immediately after I did the migration, I was able to control everything. Even more amazing is I left some devices offline during that migration process. So my U100 lock, I kept the batteries out, and then when I put the batteries in, it had moved over properly to the new M3 and was instantly controllable. This is so important because many times when you get a new hub, you have to do a lot of work. This eliminates most of that. Since this is the first thread border router on an Aqara hub, this enables both the P2 motion and the P2 contact sensors that were recently released by Aqara. Both of those sensors are very fast to respond. They're excellent sensors, and they're remaining connected to this M3 hub. But there's a couple of problems with this. These are the only thread-based devices that you can attach to the hub today. We'll have to wait for new Aqara devices to come out, and they don't have any settings on them today. So they are just basic devices. And actually, when you look at the P1 motion sensor versus the P2 right now, the P1 has more settings for it. So there's just a couple of limitations with this thread feature, but it's working very well today. What this next feature enables is really powerful, but again, we end up a little bit limited, and that makes it disappointing in some ways. But most of you, I think, are gonna love this one. Now, today, using the infrared blaster and what is called the Matter Bridge feature, you can control a regular air conditioner like it is a thermostat inside of Apple HomeKit, Samsung SmartThings, Google Home, and a number of other applications. You can also do that within Aqara's app, which is actually really useful with their automation engine. And I told you that 4 out of 5 infrared devices I had in my home worked perfectly with this IR blaster on the M3. The one thing that didn't work though was an LG air conditioner. Aqara didn't seem to have that unit in their library, and your unit does have to be in the library in order for this feature to work. The good news is you can submit your air conditioner to Aqara, and they'll hopefully add it. But I think this is something good to check with their support staff before you go relying on it being there. I was lucky enough to have another Medea AC unit, and it worked with that one. So that's how I'm showing you this demo working. It's local control, which again means it doesn't need the internet. And this only took about 5 minutes to set up from start to finish. It's an impressive amount of smart control that you can gain with very little effort in the M3. What's happening here is I'm teaching the M3 Hub to control my air conditioner, and then what the hub is doing is it's porting that air conditioner like it's a smart device over to the Matter standard. Now, you'll remember that I talked about the Matter standard and how it was working with Philips Hue and other Matter products. Unfortunately, the same sort of problem occurs again because I can't bring other regular electronics into that Matter bridge. So any other type of infrared device isn't going to work with this feature, and I don't blame Aqara for this one either. This is Matter in a nutshell, but it will frustrate a lot of you if you can't bring in those other types of devices using the Matter bridge. Now, the good news is that your regular integrations should bring in every IR device you have. What I mean by that is in most of those apps, you can still bring in the Aqara service. It works differently than how you bring in this Matter bridge, but it can also mean that the control is done through cloud services. So none of this is perfect. You kind of have to pick one or the other. Okay, so my recommendation is for you to take those different things that I've talked about, the things that are not quite working, compare that to what you want to do with the hub. And if you're sitting there going, one of these new features is really critical for me, or is the reason I was considering the M3, then you need to hold off, or you need to ask in the comments if something's been resolved. You can also contact Aqara and ask them, and hopefully we will, as a team, work on an update video for when we can test some of these new features and or get them working. Otherwise, understand that I'm losing my mind because I want it to be perfect. It's not perfect, but it is the best experience today with Aqara, and it's probably the least expensive hub on the market, especially when we compare cost for features and cost for reliability. It's really good at what Aqara has always done, and it does add some really important new things. So check out the links below if you're thinking about getting an M3 hub, or for that matter, any of Aqara's well-priced smart home products. I'll be linking my favorites down below, but if you're interested in understanding where some other companies are when it comes to their smart home hub offering, the playlist up on screen now will show you where some of those companies are at. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, live smart.